The Colosseum erupted with the thunder of 70,000 voices as the blood moon rose, bathing the ancient sands in a deep, glowing crimson light. In its heart stood Livia Aurelia, a wolfless slave bound in chains, her simple tunic torn by the night wind, her eyes fierce with unyielding spirit. From his throne of obsidian and bone, Emperor Valerian Maximus, the mighty Gladiator Emperor, descended with commanding power. He gripped her chin, marked her neck with a bold public bite to declare her weakness before the roaring crowd, then turned away without a second glance. Yet in that very moment, as the bite pulsed beneath the swollen blood moon, something ancient and powerful stirred deep within Livia's soul. The Emperor had unknowingly awakened his fated mate, and destiny itself was about to change forever. As the roar of the crowd faded into the distance, the scene shifted beneath the Colosseum, into the cold, damp hypogeum cells where the air smelled of stone and despair. Livia Aurelia sat chained against the rough wall, her heart still racing from the Emperor's bold mark. In the flickering torchlight, memories flooded her mind. She was the last living descendant of the nearly forgotten First Luna bloodline, an ancient lineage said to have carried the purest essence of balance, wisdom, and harmony between wolf and human. A bloodline the Lupine Empire had hunted and tried to erase for centuries during the Great Purges, fearing its power could one day challenge their rule of conquest and spectacle. Her mother had protected her with everything she had. Late at night, in whispered stories by candlelight, she had told Livia of their proud heritage, of Lunas who once guided emperors with gentle strength rather than fear. But she had also warned her daughter never to speak of it, never to hope, never to let anyone discover the dormant power sleeping in her veins. All her life, Livia had clung to one single fragile dream, a dream of quiet freedom. She imagined herself walking barefoot through the misty border forests far beyond the Empire's reach, where the trees whispered secrets older than any throne, where no one would ask if she carried a wolf, and where she could finally live as her own person. No chains, no masters, no expectations, just the wind in her hair and peace in her soul. But now that dream felt painfully distant. The Emperor's bold mark burned softly against her skin, sending unwelcome waves of heat through her body. It stirred something deep inside her, something ancient, powerful, and completely uninvited. A force that whispered of destiny and connection. A force she had spent her entire life fearing, because Livia had always feared the mate bond more than death itself. She had seen what it did to women in this empire, how it could slowly strip away their choices, their voices, their very sense of self. How proud, strong souls became shadows of the powerful alphas they were bound to. She had sworn she would never let that happen to her. She would rather die free than live owned. Yet here she was. If she fell in the arena tonight, her story would end in the sand. Just another nameless soul swallowed by the Empire's endless hunger for entertainment. No one would remember the wolfless slave who once dared to dream of forests and freedom. But if she survived, she risked losing so much more. She could lose the hard-won independence she had guarded so fiercely through years of hardship. The quiet strength that had kept her spirit unbroken even in chains. Through the future she had fought so desperately to imagine for herself. because Emperor Valerian Maximus was unlike any alpha she had ever known. He was the Gladiator Emperor, battle-hardened, possessive, and forged in fire and blood. A man who had risen from slavery to absolute power by claiming everything he desired. And now the mate bond was beginning to awaken between them, pulling at the edges of her soul with a force that felt both terrifying and undeniable. In the flickering darkness of the cell, Livia felt the true depth of the stakes pressing down on her heart. It wasn't only her life that hung in the balance beneath the blood moon. It was her identity, her freedom, her dreams of a life lived on her own terms. And beneath it all lingered the quiet, soul-deep dread that destiny itself might claim her heart against her will, binding her forever to an emperor whose world was built on conquest, control, and the roar of the arena. She drew in a shaky breath, staring at the iron chains around her wrists. Whatever happened when those arena gates opened again, nothing would ever be the same. The heavy iron gates of the Colosseum groaned open with a sound that echoed like distant thunder across the vast arena. 70,000 voices, which had been roaring with anticipation only moments before, now held a charged, expectant hush as the next phase of the night unfolded beneath the ever-watchful glow of the blood moon. From the shadows beyond the gates emerged 3 majestic Caspian tigers, their sleek forms moving with powerful, fluid grace. Their coats gleamed like molten gold in the deep crimson light of the moon, and their eyes held a wild, focused intensity as they stepped onto the vast expanse of sand. They moved with natural elegance, yet there was an undeniable energy in every stride and every turn of their heads as they locked their gaze upon Livia Aurelia, the lone figure standing vulnerable yet resolute at the center of the arena. Livia felt her heart beat steadily in her chest. She was aware of her limitations more than ever in that moment. She possessed no inner wolf to lend her strength or speed, no sharpened instincts honed by years of training. She had only her own quiet courage, her unyielding spirit, and the simple tunic that fluttered gently against her skin in the cool night breeze. The chains on her wrists served as a constant, silent reminder of the life she had known until now. Yet even as the tigers began their approach with breathtaking poise, something deep within her began to respond to the call of the swollen blood moon above. Then, in one quiet, pivotal instant, the shift began. A single delicate drop from the Emperor's earlier marking fell softly from the curve of her neck and met the ancient sands below. The moment that drop made contact, bathed in the radiant crimson glow of the blood moon, the very air surrounding Livia seemed to come alive with a soft, shimmering energy. A profound, warm surge of latent power stirred within her veins, ancient, gentle, and filled with the quiet potential of centuries long forgotten. It moved through her like a gentle river of starlight, awakening something beautiful and long dormant. The world around her appeared to soften and slow, granting her a moment of extraordinary clarity and grace. Livia began to move with a fluid, almost ethereal elegance that felt both new and deeply familiar. She glided across the sand with unnatural yet beautiful precision, weaving between the tigers' graceful paths as though guided by invisible threads of moonlight. Her body responded with instinctive harmony, flowing effortlessly from one position to the next, spinning, stepping, turning with the poise of a dancer beneath the stars. At the tips of her fingers, delicate silver-tipped extensions shimmered into view, adding a subtle touch of otherworldly beauty to her movements without aggression or force. She evaded each approach with mesmerizing serenity and strength, her entire being radiating a quiet, radiant power that transformed the arena into a stage of wonder rather than fear. The spectators, who had moments earlier filled the stands with laughter and dismissive chatter, now fell into a profound, awed silence. Then, like a gentle wave building across the vast crowd, gasps of astonishment and whispers of amazement began to spread. "How can this be?" voices murmured. "The one without a wolf moves with the grace of the ancient ones themselves." The energy in the Colosseum shifted palpably, from casual spectacle to something sacred and breathtaking, as if every soul present could feel the subtle hand of destiny at work. High upon his throne of polished obsidian and intricately carved bone, Emperor Valerian Maximus leaned forward, his powerful frame tense with sudden intensity. A deep, unfamiliar warmth spread across the imperial mark upon his wrist, the eternal symbol of his rule and authority. Within the depths of his soul, his powerful wolf stirred with passionate intensity, rising with a longing so profound it shook the foundations of his legendary self-control. His piercing amber eyes remained fixed upon Livia, drinking in every elegant motion, every moment of her awakening. For the first time in his storied life of conquest and unyielding strength, the Gladiator Emperor experienced a pull that reached far beyond power or pride, a soul-deep recognition that refused to be silenced or pushed aside. This marked the arrival of the first twist, not through turmoil, but through a beautiful unfolding of wonder and possibility. The arena had become more than a place of trials. It had transformed into hallowed ground, where something ancient and meaningful was gently, yet powerfully, coming back to life beneath the tender watch of the blood moon. A momentary lull settled over the Colosseum, allowing the crowd a brief chance to process the extraordinary sight they had just witnessed. Whispers and excited conversations hummed through the stands like a living current. Yet the night held many more layers still to reveal, and the second twist emerged with the weight of loyalty tested, hidden truths spoken, and destinies beginning to intertwine. From the distant gates, a new figure entered the arena, tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying the quiet dignity of a seasoned warrior. This was Cassian, once the most trusted and loyal legate in Emperor Valerian's inner circle, a brother in arms who had stood beside the emperor through countless challenges. Now condemned for the grave act of voicing his belief that the empire's endless spectacles of combat had strayed too far from true honor. Cassian stepped onto the sand with measured, purposeful strides. When his calm, knowing gaze met Livia's across the illuminated arena, a subtle yet profound change passed over his expression. Rather than advancing with hostility as the expectant crowd anticipated, Cassian moved with clear intention and positioned himself as a protective presence before her, offering his strength as a shield against whatever might come next. Drawing close enough that his words could reach only her ears, he spoke in a voice filled with quiet reverence and centuries of suppressed hope. The ancient prophecies spoken in hushed tones across generations were never simple legends or children's tales. Within you flows the sacred blood of the first Luna, a lineage of wisdom, balance, and harmony. You are the one so many have quietly awaited, the gentle key capable of restoring equilibrium and bringing a long-awaited end to the cycle of endless spectacle that has weighed heavily upon our empire's soul for far too long. Livia felt the depth of his words resonate within her, stirring both hope and a sense of tremendous responsibility. The air between them seemed alive with unspoken possibility and shared understanding. Before she could offer any reply, however, a commanding roar that resonated through every stone of the Colosseum filled the night air. Emperor Valerian Maximus rose from his throne with majestic authority and leapt from the elevated platform in one fluid, powerful motion. As he descended through the crimson-lit air, his form began to shift gracefully into a majestic half-wolf state. Tall, noble, and radiating natural command. His presence commanded attention as he landed with controlled elegance upon the sand and engaged Cassian in a display of masterful skill and shared history. Even amid their intense yet disciplined exchange, Valerian's piercing amber eyes repeatedly found their way back to Livia. In those glances, one could see layers of raw confusion battling with a deepening, one undeniable pull, a hunger of the soul that grew stronger with every shared moment under the glowing moon. Then, in one transcendent, soul-stirring instant, the full mate bond awakened between them in all its splendor. Golden threads of soft, luminous light, visible only to the eyes of their connected souls, wove gracefully through the space separating them, forming delicate yet unbreakable bonds of deep recognition and unity. A warm, enveloping wave of profound connection washed gently over Livia, allowing her to sense echoes of the Emperor's inner strength, the loneliness he carried despite his power, the weight of his rule, and the centuries of quiet longing he had long kept guarded within his heart. The bond settled into place with breathtaking beauty and emotional depth, linking their paths with a sense of inevitability and tender promise. This second twist had irrevocably altered the fabric of the night. The once distant Gladiator Emperor was no longer separate from the events unfolding below. He had become intimately and passionately connected to Livia by the most sacred, beautiful force known to their world, a force that transcended thrones, chains, and even time itself. As the emotional undercurrents continued to build with quiet intensity, the third and deepest twist unfolded gradually across the remainder of the arena's trials, revealing itself layer by layer like the petals of a night-blooming flower opening beneath the blood moon's gentle radiance. With every elegant movement Livia made, every natural surge of her awakening abilities, rich ancestral memories began to flow into her consciousness, not as distant echoes, but as vivid, golden-hued visions that felt intimately real and emotionally stirring. These visions painted breathtaking scenes of the first wolves in their era of true harmony, guiding their people with wisdom and compassion rather than dominance or endless displays of power. She witnessed noble Lunas standing as cherished equals and trusted partners beside emperors and leaders, fostering peace, understanding, and lasting prosperity for all. She also sensed the noble intention behind the ancient protective measure, often called a curse in later tales, that had been placed upon their bloodline with care and foresight, intended to temper their abilities and safeguard against any future imbalance or misuse of power. These profound memories brought forth a realization that settled deeply and tenderly within Livia's heart. carrying both quiet hope and a sense of solemn responsibility. This emerging mate bond represented something far greater than a personal connection forged between two individuals. It held within its gentle embrace the beautiful potential to help heal long-standing wounds within the Lupine Empire, to restore the wisdom, balance, and harmony that had gradually faded over generations. Yet it also carried a delicate caution. Should Valerian's formidable will and history of conquest overshadow the light of compassion and ancient knowledge she carried, the bond could unintentionally deepen existing shadows rather than dispel them. Throughout these unfolding moments, even while maintaining his masterful presence in the arena, Emperor Valerian Maximus wrestled with an inner storm of immense depth and passion. His renowned discipline, the steadfast will that had elevated him from humble beginnings to the pinnacle of power, now faced its greatest test. Centuries of carefully guarded longing clashed with his pride and deep-seated need for control. His wolf called to him with sincere, unwavering intensity, encouraging him to draw nearer to Livia, to stand beside her, and to finally embrace the missing piece that destiny had revealed so dramatically. Yet the emperor continued to navigate this internal conflict with quiet strength, a watchful glow of the blood moon. With each graceful step Livia took across the sand, with every lingering glance exchanged between her and the emperor, the invisible yet luminous threads of fate seemed to draw them closer in an ever-tightening, ever more beautiful embrace. The night had evolved into something far richer than anyone present could have anticipated. It had become a passionate, soul-stirring dance of destiny, where a woman who had lived without a wolf and a man who had conquered the known world found themselves drawn together by forces older, wiser, and more enduring than any empire, any throne, or any chain. The connection between them continued to blossom, deeper, more tender, more passionate, and increasingly impossible to deny, as the blood moon shone on, bearing silent witness to the awakening of two hearts and the quiet rebirth of hope for an entire realm. The Colosseum had descended into a profound, almost sacred hush beneath the unrelenting crimson glare of the blood moon. What had once been a roaring arena of spectacle and triumph now felt like hallowed ground, where the threads of destiny, love, and transformation were converging with breathtaking intensity. The air itself seemed heavy with anticipation, as if every soul among the 70,000 spectators could sense that something monumental was about to unfold. Emperor Valerian Maximus, towering in his majestic, half-shifted form, moved with deliberate, commanding grace as he slowly backed Livia Aurelia against the ancient, weathered stone wall of the Colosseum. His powerful black fur caught the moonlight like polished obsidian, rippling with every breath. His massive frame radiated both raw, undeniable authority, and a vulnerability he had never allowed the world to see. His piercing amber eyes burned with a turbulent storm of emotions: fierce denial, deep confusion, lingering pride, and a desperate, soul-deep need that refused to be silenced any longer. For several long, charged moments, the Gladiator Emperor stood before her, breathing heavily. When he finally spoke, his voice carried across the silent arena like rolling thunder wrapped in velvet. Low, resonant, and filled with raw, passionate intensity. "You are an impossibility, Livia. A beacon of light I never sought. a force that threatens to unravel everything I have built through years of blood, sacrifice, unyielding will, and endless conquest. How can one who entered these sands without a wolf now stand before me and shake the very foundations of my empire? Livia remained pressed gently against the cool stone, yet she did not shrink away. Instead, she lifted her chin with quiet, graceful defiance that radiated inner strength. Her storm-gray eyes now shimmered with the emerging silver glow of her awakened wolf, reflecting both unyielding courage and profound compassion. She was no longer the chained, wolfless slave who had entered the arena as entertainment. She had become something far greater, a woman awakening to her true power, and her voice rang out clear, steady, and filled with courageous honesty that touched every corner of the Colosseum. This bond does not demand a broken slave kneeling at your feet in submission, Valerian. It does not seek only obedience or possession alone. The mate bond demands truth, raw, unflinching truth. It asks for a true partner who will stand beside you as an equal, one who will gently but firmly help you confront the heavy cost of a reign built solely on conquest and spectacle. If we choose to accept this bond tonight, we do not simply claim each other in passion or desire. We make a deeper choice together to build something wiser, something more balanced, and something truly worthy of the empire you have fought so hard to rule and protect. The entire Colosseum seemed to hold its collective breath. A single, pregnant silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of centuries. Time itself felt suspended in that transcendent moment under the glowing blood moon. Valerian's amber eyes searched Livia's face with intense, vulnerable focus. For the first time in his long, legendary, and often brutal life, the Gladiator Emperor, the man who had risen from chains to absolute power and had never bowed before anyone, revealed the first visible crack in his armor of iron will. A single heartbeat of deep, profound hesitation passed between them. In that quiet pause, one could almost hear the internal battle raging within him, centuries of suppressed longing clashing against his pride, his fear of losing control, and the undeniable magnetic pull of the bond that now called urgently to the deepest, most hidden part of his soul. Then, with a powerful, a passionate growl that resonated through every ancient stone of the Colosseum and vibrated in the chests of all who watched, Valerian made his choice. He leaned down toward her with deliberate tenderness mixed with overwhelming, raw desire. In that moment, he completed the mark, no longer shallow or mocking, but deep, meaningful, and born from genuine acceptance and profound longing. The moment his bite sealed the bond fully and completely, a brilliant golden light erupted between them, like the first radiant sunrise breaking over the longest night the world had ever known. The golden glow was visible to every single person in the vast arena, warm, pure, radiant, and filled with ancient, sacred power. It bathed the arena in a soft, an ethereal luminescence that left the crowd in reverent awe. Livia's body arched with graceful beauty as the final transformation took hold. She shifted completely for the first time into a breathtaking silver wolf, sleek, elegant, radiant, and majestic. Glowing ancestral runes shimmered and pulsed along her fur like living constellations of starlight, carrying the ancient wisdom and harmony of the first Luna bloodline. She stood as a vision of beauty, strength, and quiet power beneath the blood moon. Valerian's own majestic black wolf responded instantly, drawn forward by a deep, soul-stirring longing he could no longer resist. The two wolves came together in a primal yet profoundly emotional dance of acceptance and unity. They circled each other with graceful power and tender passion, who's moving in perfect harmony, weaving, intertwining, drawing closer and closer in a beautiful display of trust, connection, and shared destiny. Their forms moved together with elegant strength and heartfelt emotion, as though two long separated halves of the same ancient soul had finally found their way home after centuries apart. In that sacred, unforgettable moment, witnessed by the entire empire, the true mate bond sealed completely. Golden threads of luminous light continued to shimmer and pulse around them, binding their souls together with unbreakable beauty, passion, and profound emotional depth. The crowd remained in stunned, reverent silence. What had begun as a night of imperial triumph and bloody entertainment had transformed into one of the most historic, emotionally charged, and beautiful moments in the long history of the Lupine Empire. As the brilliant golden light gradually softened and gently faded, both Livia and Valerian returned gracefully to their human forms. They stood close together against the stone wall, breathing in unison, their bodies still humming with the afterglow of the bond. The new mark on Livia's neck now glowed with a soft, elegant silver radiance, the undeniable and beautiful sigil of the true Luna, a symbol of awakening, balance, and renewed hope. The once wolfless slave and the mighty Gladiator Emperor now stood united as equals, forever changed by the passionate, difficult, and deeply meaningful choice they had made together beneath the eternal, witnessing light of the blood moon. As the first tender rays of dawn slowly painted the eastern horizon with strokes of soft gold, rose, and warm amber, the mighty blood moon finally began its graceful retreat. Its deep crimson light faded gently, surrendering the sky to the promise of a new day filled with hope and renewal. The Colosseum, which had stood witness through the long night to unimaginable chaos, profound awakening, raw vulnerability, fierce resistance, and the powerful sealing of an ancient mate bond, now rested in a quiet, almost reverent calm. The vast arena seemed to breathe easier, as though the very stones themselves recognized that something sacred and transformative had taken place beneath their watchful gaze. High upon the grand imperial balcony overlooking the entire arena, Livia Aurelia stood with elegant poise and radiant inner strength beside Emperor Valerian Maximus. She was no longer the frightened, wolfless slave who had been thrust into the sands as mere entertainment. Through the trials of the night and the awakening of her ancient bloodline, she had fully emerged as the true Luna, graceful, powerful, wise, and deeply compassionate. She wore flowing imperial robes of rich crimson, beautifully accented with shimmering silver thread that perfectly complemented the soft, luminous sigil now resting upon her neck. That glowing mark served as a timeless symbol of her awakened heritage, the completed mate bond, and the hopeful dawn of a new era for the entire Lupine Empire. Her presence was both commanding and gentle, a perfect harmony of quiet authority, inner resilience, and heartfelt empathy. Standing tall and steady at her side was Valerian, the once ruthless Gladiator Emperor, whose name had inspired both fear and awe across the known world. The hard edges of his usual armor of unyielding pride and iron control had noticeably softened in the gentle morning light. His piercing amber eyes now carried a new and profound depth. Layers of awe, quiet tenderness, hard-earned humility, and the first fragile yet beautiful seeds of genuine hope for the future. Together, they faced the vast crowd that still filled the stands in stunned yet respectful silence, many still processing the extraordinary events they had witnessed under the blood moon. With calm confidence, unwavering compassion, and a voice that carried clearly across the arena, Livia raised her hand and delivered her first official decree as the newly awakened Luna. Under the sacred witness of the blood moon, and now in the gentle light of this new dawn, mercy shall replace vengeance. The surviving gladiators who fought with honor and courage tonight, including the noble and steadfast Cassian, shall be granted their freedom and restored to their rightful place with full honor. No more blood will be spilled this morning in the name of spectacle or entertainment. Let this day mark the beginning of compassion within these walls. A powerful wave of astonished yet deeply hopeful murmurs swept through the 70,000 souls gathered below. Eyes turned toward Cassian and the other survivors standing in the arena. Cassian bowed his head low in profound gratitude, his expression reflecting both relief and a renewed faith in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Valerian then stepped forward with quiet dignity, his strong, resonant voice carrying the weight of true leadership and long overdue transformation. From this day forward, the blood games that have fed upon suffering, division, and human cost for far too many generations will come to an end. We will no longer honor strength through endless slaughter and cruelty. Instead, we shall honor strength through wisdom, through balance, through compassion, and through the ancient ways of harmony that our ancestors once held sacred before fear and conquest took root. The arena will be transformed from a place of death and spectacle into a space where true courage, personal growth, unity, and the celebration of life can flourish and be remembered for generations to come. The announcement sent visible ripples of genuine hope and cautious optimism flowing through the crowd and beyond, into the heart of the empire itself. For the first time in centuries, the people glimpsed the real possibility of meaningful change. A future where power could walk hand in hand with mercy, where destiny could lead toward healing rather than endless cycles of conflict, and where the empire might finally rediscover its lost soul. As the sun continued its steady ascent, bathing the sky and the ancient stones in warm, golden light, Valerian turned fully toward Livia in a quiet, deeply intimate moment, shielded from the eyes of the crowd. His commanding presence softened completely as he looked at her with open reverence, vulnerability, and a tenderness he had long kept buried. "You were the storm this empire desperately needed," he murmured, his voice low and rich with raw emotion. "A force of nature I never expected and never prepared for, yet one that has awakened something long dormant and forgotten deep within my soul. You challenged the thick walls I had built so carefully around my heart. You showed me that true greatness does not lie only in conquest and unyielding strength, but in the courage to change, to grow, to see the world through kinder eyes, and to allow light to enter where darkness once ruled." Livia smiled gently, her eyes warm with understanding, quiet strength, and the tender beginnings of a deep and lasting affection. She reached out and placed her hand softly over his, a simple yet profoundly meaningful gesture of equality partnership, trust, and conscious choice. "And you, Valerian," she replied with gentle wisdom, heartfelt sincerity, and quiet grace, "were never truly emperor until this very moment. Real power is not only about ruling from a throne of stone and fear. True power includes the strength and humility to kneel beside someone who sees every scar you carry, the wounds of your past battles, the loneliness of your rise, the weight of every difficult decision, and still chooses, with open eyes and an open heart, to stand with you as an equal. True power is not ruling alone in isolation. It is building something better, something kinder, something more balanced, and something truly lasting together, side by side." They stood side by side on the imperial balcony, shoulders nearly touching, facing the rising sun together as true equals. Two souls who had entered the night so vastly different. One carrying only quiet dreams of freedom and no wolf to call her own. The other forged through endless battle and hardened by years of conquest, now stood forever transformed by the events of the blood moon. The mate bond that had begun in mockery and resistance had blossomed into a reluctant yet deeply passionate love. A union built not on force or domination, but on conscious choice, mutual respect, shared vulnerability, and the courageous decision to walk a new path hand in hand toward a brighter future. In that golden morning light, with the warm sun warming their faces and the vast possibilities of tomorrow stretching wide and bright before them, the Lupine Empire began its slow, hopeful, and long overdue rebirth. Old wounds would take time, patience, and care to heal fully. Challenges and pockets of resistance would surely arise along the way. The road ahead would test their bond, their patience, their commitment to change, and their ability to balance the old ways with the new. Yet in this precious, shining moment, filled with the pure promise of dawn, there was undeniable hope, renewed purpose, and the quiet certainty that together they could forge something truly beautiful from the ashes of the old ways. What hidden strength lies quietly dormant within your own heart, and waiting patiently for the right moment, or perhaps the right person, to awaken it fully? And when destiny finally calls your name in its own mysterious way, will you have the courage to choose love, growth, mercy, and transformation, even when it challenges everything you once believed to be true about yourself and the world around you? If this tale of awakening, reluctant love, and profound transformation has stirred something deep within your soul, then please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss the next chapter when destiny calls once more beneath the luminous glow of the full moon. Remember always, sometimes the greatest power we possess does not come from conquering the world around us, but from allowing the right bond, the right moment, and the right love to gently reshape both ourselves and the world we live in for the better.